Hello and welcome to Hurley Write TV. I'm Sam Matero, and we are launching this new effort to get you excited about, well, not just professional development skills such as writing and presenting, but how you can apply those skills in everyday life. So I figured what a great way to get started than to talk with somebody from the Hurley family, hence Hurley Write TV. We're going to talk today with MJ Hurley and tell us a little bit about the genesis of this idea and where we're going to be going with this new TV format and some of the fun that we're going to have here and opportunities for you to get involved. MJ, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining the virtual TV show today. How you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Sam. Looking forward to doing this. This should be a fun, kind of creative way for us to talk about some real world problems that we see with some of our clients. So we appreciate you taking the time to have us.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy this medium is really it's really unique in that it's very personal. It gives us the opportunity to reach out across the globe, talk with people from all different walks of life. But what do you think about soft skills development? How important that is across the board to everybody, no matter what walk of life that they're in?
That's so true. I mean, we hear this all the time. In particular, I feel like colleges, and I'm not trying to rip on any educators because they're doing a wonderful job, but I feel like a lot of colleges don't do a great job of preparing people for how to write in the real world. I saw a LinkedIn meme the other day where, in college, the assignment is write 10 papers. And in the real world, it's explain this to me in 7 seconds or I'm out. Unfortunately, what most people do, though, they take the 10 paper kind of mantra or process into the workplace, and they often write more than they need to. It's hard to get an idea across, but understanding, how readers actually read today. And, that's a lot of what we, a lot of the research that we've done to get people to start thinking critically about the message and how to write and how to communicate. And it's easy to do if you have the right process, but a lot of people just haven't been given those skills and those processes.
Sure, absolutely. Well, the TV show format that we're going to be taking here, I think it's important to clarify in this first episode. When we first started talking about this, one of the things that concerned me about this is I didn't want it to come across as like, a series of marketing videos for your company,
Right.
although this is your company's show and you guys are going to be the driving force in terms of the content coming on here, and teaching people in live time and inspiring people. Of course, we want them to call Hurley, right? If they ever need their, they need to brush up on their professional development skills. It's what you guys have been doing for going on 30 years now, right?
That's right.
Right. But of course, we want to inspire people just to take a hard look in the mirror, wherever you are in your walk of life, whether you're a college student or you're somebody that's out there entering the workforce and you want to utilize some of these skills to brush up on your interviewing skills, right? I mean, these are soft skills that everybody can benefit from. And
Absolutely.
what are some of your thoughts on how we can use this new TV format to have some fun here and to illustrate and teach and inspire at the same time, MJ?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I mean, what I really want to do, and I think one of the things that we really pride ourselves in is giving people new concepts and new techniques, right? So it's just things that frankly people haven't thought of or heard of. It makes sense logically once they hear them, but it's not, it's not your ninth grade, grammar workshop. It's a lot about readability. It's a lot about usability. And then frankly, it's not, you don't have to have a PhD in English to be able to understand and use these strategies, right? It can be really anybody can use it. If you have critical thinking skills, we have some great tips for you to kind of take advantage of. But I think one of the most interesting things about, as you alluded to earlier about this idea of readability and research based is, how we can start enforcing and how we can start using these things based on actual science and based on actual research, how to persuade, how to emphasize information, how to get readers to buy into an idea, just very, I'm not going to say basic, but easy to use concepts that we're excited to share with you that I think a lot of people just have never taken the time to think about and are often, missing the boat.
Yeah, absolutely. These are definitely critical skills that a lot of folks, as you're saying, the first step is recognizing that you need to work on these things. That there is an application that for your life, wherever you are in your
Absolutely.
life. So let's talk about some of the subjects we're going to be covering in the first few episodes. We had talked about the notion of thought leadership. I got my notes down here. Thought leadership, writing effective emails. So these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about on Hurley Write TV in the future. Writing documents for skimmers, right? I was discussing this next topic with my first guest that we had. Pam Hurley connected me with one of her colleagues, longtime colleagues, Michael Hoagland, who is an accomplished aerospace engineer. And he shared his thoughts in a rather comprehensive interview with me. And we talked about grammar. That a lot of times there's a misconception that's going on. People think that they need to brush up on the grammar, but in reality, or they're being told to brush up on the grammar, but in reality, the problem is really a deficiency in their organization of their words and their presentations. I'm going to play a real quick soundbite from that interview and then get your comment on what he has to say. Now, how do you know if your problem is really grammar or lack of clarity and focus?
Yeah, so that's a great point. I think the idea of building on ideas, one argument at a time, is beyond grammar, as you're saying. I think it gets into another realm of how do you put thoughts that are building blocks to other thoughts, and then give the reader your conclusion or your recommendation. The other thing I wanted to comment on,
okay, we'll get back to that other comment here in just a second. Your thoughts on what he had to say and working with Michael?
Yeah, no, he's spot on there, right? And one of the things one of the tests I like people to run is if you write a document and let's say you clean up all the grammar issues, right? There is not a grammar issue to be found, a typo, anything like that in the document. You could still say in lots of cases that this document is an example of poor writing. And so that, I think, proves that really grammar isn't our issue in most cases. Again, not saying in all cases. Certainly people have grammar issues. But, what we try to get people to think about is lots of times we write or communicate and we ask people to kind of assess the effectiveness of what they've done. And, lots of times the effectiveness is judged on how it sounds or you make sure all the facts are considered, things like this. And those really aren't the best ways to think about assessing what it is we're doing. At the end of the day, we're trying to achieve a goal, right? I'm not just sending you an email because I feel like it. I need you to do something. I need you to think something. I need you to respond. There's some sort of action associated with every, piece of communication that we send out. And it's really getting people to start thinking critically about how do we start enforcing this and how do we start really ensuring that these things are being achieved. And again, most people, I feel like they write for the wrong reasons. It's about how good or professional I can make it sound, not about how effective it is.
Absolutely. He makes another good point here, going back to the comment about the importance of these skills across the spectrum of life. Check this out. Tell me what you think.
The other thing I wanted to comment on, you mentioned soft skills and that sort of thing. I think emotional intelligence, and as that comes out in the writing that one does, is important, because I think when it's appropriate, having an empathetic voice in your writing, right, depending on what you're writing, is an essential skill to validate a customer's concerns if it's appropriate, and having that emotional intelligence about what might the reader be looking for, or what am I responding to, which is typically what happens with engineers. They're responding to comments from a customer on a document, a report, whatever. And so it's important not to be always in a defensive mode, but to validate, but then to persuade on the point you're trying to make, and maybe even concede. So it's having an awareness that goes beyond grammar and spelling, and being clear. Obviously, being too wordy is not good.
Yeah, this is great stuff, Michael.
Really
we actually had a wonderful interview. I got a good 20-25 minute
that's
interview.
great. That's great.
And
You contributed a lot. It's awesome.
Yeah, people can go back and watch the whole thing in its entirety on the YouTube channel for the new show. So, but he gets into a lot of detail, the practical application of this. I mean, I know he had worked with you guys for years, and
Yeah.
as a manager, he applied these things to various teams in various industries over the past 20, 30 years. He's got some great sound advice for us. What'd you think about his comments? I thought that was
No,
fabulous
that's great. I've
stuff.
never heard it called emotional intelligence. But he's
Emotional
absolutely
intelligence. Yeah.
right.
I mean, doesn't it really come down to knowing yourself, finding your
Absolutely.
voice, and at the same time being able to articulate that because you come to know and understand your audience. But I loved how he drew empathy into that.
Yeah, that's funny. So we talk a little bit about that, or a lot about that, I shouldn't say a little bit. This idea that I think the first thing, what Aristotle, if you don't remember Aristotle, but he's obviously a philosopher from years ago, he made a really interesting comment that said all discourse is persuasive. And what he's essentially saying is every time we communicate, we're persuading every single time. Nonverbal communication, verbal communication, written communication, all of it is a form of persuasion. I'm trying to get you to think something about me. I'm trying to get you to come to a conclusion. I'm trying to get you to agree to something, right? So, but to do that,
one way or another, you're always selling when you're communicating. Sure.
If you say hi to me in the hallway and I roll my eyes at you, I persuaded you what to think about me, right? You're probably like, that guy is not that nice, or I'm probably not going to talk to him next time I see him in the hallway, right? So, we're always getting readers to think something. So his point about emotional intelligence is really interesting because, this is a part of how we fashion our argument. One of the things that we see people do a lot is we often write for ourselves, or we write for someone who has our background or our knowledge base. And I think one of the most important things that we can impress upon people is you're not writing for yourself when you write or you communicate, you're communicating to someone else. So we need to almost take ourselves out of the equation and consider why that other person is writing, and consider the damage or potential ill effects if we don't do that, right? If someone's looking to make a decision and we haven't used persuasive elements or the things that they care about to make that decision, and we miss the mark, then obviously, that has its own set of consequences. So, one of the things that we see people use a lot, we like to call it modeling, where we use, I've already written this document once. I'm going to keep using it. I'm just going to keep replacing the data every time and make sure it's going to say same order, same organization, the whole thing. But there's a lot of assumptions that we make when we use a model. We assume a model is good. We assume a model is going to work for all readers. Well, readers might have different questions, might have different problems.
Sure, maybe it worked for one audience a year ago. That doesn't mean that it's going to work in every venue for every audience for every topic.
Right. There's not a silver bullet. And I think a lot of people come in thinking that there's a silver bullet. I can use this one thing always and it's always going to work. And that's simply not true. And so he's absolutely right with this idea of emotional intelligence, how to persuade. What are these people, the readers' pain points or their pathos, as we call it? What are their values? If I'm writing for someone who's money driven, it might be a different argument than if I'm writing for someone who's really obsessed with project timelines, right? I wouldn't want to use the same kind of compelling pieces of evidence to try to get that reader to agree. So he's spot on there.
Absolutely. Some of the other topics that we were brainstorming how we can put this thing together over the coming months, and some of the topics that we want to delve into. And you had said that, you envision sort of a TED Talks kind of feel, blending this visual aesthetic of these, this virtual television show presentation format with science, with psychology, bringing in authors, bringing in people that maybe wrote some of the papers that you're using as your foundational research to validate the techniques and such that we're talking about. So we're going to be really all over the place with this, but really fundamentally focusing on making you a better communicator, period. Some of the topics you threw at me that I'm looking forward to delving into with you. Writing for skimmers. Tell us about that.
Yeah, writing for skimmers is interesting, right? Because it's the reality of the world now is that almost all of our readers are skimmers, almost every single one of them. And almost nobody knows how to write for that person, right? And that's obviously an issue. There's been a lot of research that supports, in fact, that most readers aren't even skimmers. Most readers are straight up non-readers. There's been some research that supports.
They just say they're reading. Did you read your email? Yeah, I read it. They didn't really read it.
Yeah, I read it, but I didn't read it. Right?
That would be me.
Yeah, exactly.
Except when important clients like you, MJ, email me, then I make sure I read every word.
Right. I understand. But they've said, like, I think about of all emails being sent, about 75% of them are never opened. They've done a lot of research on, what motivates a person to open an email, right? So like who sends it is going to matter. So if it's your boss or an important client, it's going to have a much higher open rate than if it's like an intern or an external vendor you've never heard of. But that subject line matters a ton. And they say 40% of emails are being opened just based on what's in that subject line. And so thinking about how to, really start speaking to that reader, I always like to allude to the scammers and the fishers of the world that try to swindle you out of money. Obviously not great people, but they do emails really well. Look at what their email subject lines look like. It often are things that speak to us. You want a new Ferrari, or the IRS says you owe them $20,000, or your South African uncle died and you got $1 million. These are all things that are relevant to us that pique our interest. But
we laugh about that, but it's true. Somebody that is a successful criminal has their craft down to an art.
It really is in this other kind of level of thinking, right? How to put ideas into a way that readers can make sense of it. One of the biggest things that we see, especially with engineers, is they just kind of recap data and we just data dump. Well, it's really hard for a reader to just take a bunch of data and then have to transpose it and try to figure out what the point is, right? But this is often what people do, is we just make these enormous assumptions, or even worse, a lot of people, frankly, just don't like to write. And so what happens is we just try to get it done as quickly as we possibly can, and we leave it for the reviewer or the editor to kind of try to make sense of it, which obviously creates an enormous chokehold in kind of the efficiency and the workflow of an organization. And so, that's one of the things I really try to get people to think about is, you might have a writing problem, but what is this really causing? It's usually a lot more than just, oh, this is a bad email. It's usually the reputation at stake, perhaps lost revenue, time. There's all these other things that, one bad or one poor or less than, perfect piece of communication can really derail a project, can derail a client. It has all these sorts of unintended consequences. And lots of times, in fact, I talked to a potential client last week, and he was talking about all the cultural problems, organizational problems they were having because no one is able to communicate on paper, right? So these people are getting upset at each other. And if we were able to kind of clean up this thought process, it would help tremendously. But back to Michael's main point, absolutely. Each paragraph needs to be a single thought and a single idea. And what people often do is we combine multiple thoughts, or even worse, we read through it and we're really not sure what that main thought is. And so it makes it incredibly difficult for us as readers to act on information if we don't know what the point that we're supposed to act on actually is.
Pam Hurley has a segment that she wants to produce regularly called Word Fail. And tell us about that.
Yeah, so Word Fail, we're trying to find, and they're pretty easy to find, whether it be weekly, monthly, but just some sort of writing communication faux pas, where it might be an email that's poorly worded, could make you think multiple things, could be a marketing piece that's not as clear as it could be. Maybe it's just a straight up typo that completely changes the meaning of the intended outcome there. But it's supposed to be fun, kind of make you laugh. And again, not.
I have one for you.
What's that?
Man, I don't know. This is a family show. I'm not sure that I can. It's pretty funny. I'll tell you when we get off. Actually, when we sign off here. But
I think I know what you're talking about. It's about golf shirts.
No, it was when I was making television commercials early on in my career, and it involved a marketing video that I put out for my company, doing business in West Virginia, and it involved a typo of the type where I left the letter off of the word Virginia. So, yeah. Yeah, man. Wow. It was. And
it changes the meaning. It changes the meaning.
It changed the whole context of what the message that I was trying to get across. Learning should be fun. as well as productive. We are going to be taking a look at a regular basis at classic word fails, and to walk us through examples of word fails and how to overcome them, Pam Hurley coming on today, going to show us our first word fail and how to rewrite the train wreck in a better way. Pam, thanks for coming on and sharing your expertise with our audience and offering them an opportunity to get involved. So what do you got for
Thanks,
us today?
Sam. I appreciate that. Yeah, so in this series, what we're going to be doing is looking at actual pieces of writing, some of which work well and some of which don't. If you have examples you want to send us, please do so. We would love to have them. The first sample we're looking at is an excerpt from a newsletter from the office suite where we rent our offices. And so we're going to provide a little context. First of all, we want to understand that we are customers or clients of this particular office suite, and so we would be expected to be treated as such. So the headline here is keeping our bathrooms clean. Not a big deal. Everybody wants clean bathrooms, correct? So, but if we go in and we read exactly what's going on here, it becomes a little bit more than that, right? First of all, we can see that the document itself is writer focused and not reader focused. There's a lot of I've noticed over the last several weeks, and then of course we have here in the middle of the paragraph, this is becoming a nuisance for me and the staff. So part of the problem here, of course, is that there's no WIFM, there's no what's in it for me. So as the reader, I want to know, besides the fact that we all want to keep our bathrooms clean, how can you compel the reader to take the action that you want the reader to take? What could they have done differently? So one of the things that they could have done and should have done is create a WIFM, and that is a what's in it for me, which there isn't here. It's more along the lines of being very chastising and very critical and a little too graphic. I actually took out some language out of this because it was very, very graphic. So this is becoming a nuisance for me. We take great pride. And then the last line, of course, is please make sure to share the information with your team and your clients so we all have a clear understanding of our policies. What we don't know is what the policies are, number one. And then number two, what they're doing is they're putting the onus on the customer to spread the word about the policy. So this is very poorly written, very poorly done, and should again include a WIFM, right? Be a lot more friendly in tone, and it's just not. It's just one of those newsletters, and you just cringe when you read it, or at least we did when we saw it. So if you'd like to see the rewrite, email me, pam@hurleywrite.com, and we'll send that to you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much, Pam. We can have a lot of fun with this, taking a look and analyzing not just the written word, but perhaps online videos, snippets from presentations, right? There's all sorts of different ways that we can take a look at how words fail us.
Absolutely.
Pam Hurley with Word Fail. And we encourage you to, of course, smash that like button, subscribe to HurleyWrite.tv on YouTube, and go to HurleyWrite.com and you can sign up for the company newsletter, get all sorts of cool tips and tricks, and keep up on trends and events that are happening in your part of the world or in cyberspace. And of course, get hold of Pam directly with your comments and your word fails and the rewrite for this segment. So, we're going to have some fun here on the show. I'm looking forward to working with you guys. I think this is going to be a ball. I had noticed you had placed something on your LinkedIn page. I'm going to play for the audience here, and maybe we can produce some more of these things. You did a little 1-minute parody video called Bad Sheets of Writing. Tell us a little bit about that, and I'm going to go ahead and cue it up here for the audience to view.
We were just trying to kind of poke fun at normal writing that we see. We hear a lot of people say our writing is fine, and then we read stuff that's completely unreadable, and we kind of ask ourselves, is it? So we were trying to just kind of play around with some public content, just to kind of get a laugh about it's funny, but it's also true, right? Because this is how a lot of people write. And again, thinking about the cost benefit of poor communication, right? It's not just this wasted your time, but there's often now writers have to rewrite or revise. Users can't use what it is. So that was just kind of the genesis of it, thinking, kind of trying to poke fun at some pretty common things that we see. And we probably took it a little too far, but I thought it was pretty funny.
All right, let's go ahead and cue that clip up.
Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Bad Sheets of Writing. Tonight's selection comes from Internal Revenue Code, Section 509A. Enjoy. Private foundation defined. A. General rule. For purposes of this title, the term private foundation means a domestic or foreign organization described in Section 501, C.3, other than 1. An organization described in Section 170, B. 1. A. Other than in clauses 7 and 8. I have no idea what that means. We hope you've enjoyed tonight's selection of Bad Sheets of Writing. Good evening.
All right. So there's nothing really funny about the IRS except that.
That's right. The IRS is not funny. And as a client of ours, I'd also like to reach out to all my IRS clientele and say that was not supposed to directed at you or offended, or to be offensive. But yeah, it's we've all read things like that and kind of asked ourselves, what was this trying to say? Sure. And it happens a lot more than we think it does. And there's actually been some research that supports this as well, that they asked the average person, how effective of a communicator do you think you are? How effective of a writer do you think you are? And the average person ranks themselves right around a 6. And then they say a follow-up question, okay, well, how good of a communicator do you think your coworkers are? And most people rank their coworkers right around a 4. So it's interesting because we often think we're good, but ironically, we're a part of our coworkers group, right? Of our kind of this other group. So everyone thinks they're a 6 and everyone else thinks all their coworkers are 4s, but their coworkers also think we're a 4. So
in reality, everybody's about a 2.5. Until they talk to experts like you.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, I'm going to put this call out to the folks watching. Hey, if you want to come on Hurley Write TV and have some fun with us, you want to learn some of these new techniques, learn some of these skill sets in real time with some of the top leading experts in professional development, then, definitely hit us up and come on and have some fun. And maybe we can learn a little bit of something from you as well. So you're looking forward to having some folks from the audience come and join the show sometime? Yeah,
absolutely. It'd be fun, and not even people who are on our side. We get, people that disagree with us too. And so that's always welcome. Those are welcome debates. I had a call last week from a person who just swore up and down that grammar was the most important simple thing you can do. And he wasn't necessarily wrong, because he's saying it can make you look amateurish. I don't disagree with you, but usually most people's issues isn't grammar. It's thought, it's organization, it's critical thinking. And grammar can be fixed pretty easily from most of the, kind of devices, the technology we have available now. But so even if you don't agree, that's fine. Come on. We'd love to talk to you a little bit.
Yeah. A little spirited debate. I love it as well. That's great. So, MJ, closing thoughts here on our little preliminary, I guess we would call it pilot episode, and where you think we can go from here. Words of encouragement, maybe. There's a lot of people that are listening that, let's face it, you guys have been around for a long time and you serve some serious clientele. There may be people that want to benefit and want to move down this route, but they don't have the money to necessarily contract with a high-end firm to help them. Advice on maybe a small operation or an individual that wants to really brush up, other than continuing to watch our show. What can they do to take these skill sets more seriously and get the ball rolling where they are in life?
Absolutely. I mean, I think a few things. One of the things that we see everyone struggle with is we often start writing and we don't think about the reason that we're writing. So I think determining a goal or figuring out your goal for each document before you start writing is going to be a great starting point. It's like we do with anything. If I'm going to go to the gym, I have a goal in mind. I'm trying to lose 20 pounds, right? So I'm going to try to work towards that goal. But what often happens with writing is we just start writing and we don't think about the reason that we're writing. So again, we're just trying to get it done and get it done quickly. But this has a ton of consequences, basically making us work harder than needs to be, but also making our reader work a lot harder. So from a starting point, I think that is something that most people struggle with or just don't think about. It's very logical, but that's what I would argue to anyone who's looking to improve. Step one, every time before you put pen to paper, ask yourself, why am I writing this? And start from there.
Check your motivation. That's awesome. All right, folks, there you have it. Straight from the Hurley mouth. MJ Hurley, thanks for coming on the pilot episode here and informing our audience about the plans and the vision for this show. And we're looking forward to having some fun and delving a little bit deeper into some of these subjects, maybe playing some online quizzes with our audience, involving them in the discussions. As you mentioned, some spirited debate is always cool. And we're looking forward to learning more, not just from you, but the other educators on the Hurley Write team.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun. Hopefully we get a lot out of this. And again, we're about to love to hear from people in the crowd.
There we go. MJ Hurley for Hurley Write Incorporated. My name is Sam Otero, and you are watching a new endeavor here, Hurley Write TV, and we are excited about this, and we're looking forward to hearing from you, involving you in this endeavor in future episodes. That's it for the premiere, our pilot episode of Hurley Write TV. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Sam Otero, and I am out. We'll see you next episode.